Good morning, YouTubers. How you doing? RedCrimsonGaming here. You know, I was watching an interview, and Sony former president Yoshida commented on Nintendo, saying that Nintendo is losing their identity. I found it funny that Sony had the audacity to comment on how Nintendo conduct business, because there are two different entities that conduct business differently. But, you know, everybody has their opinion and, you know, freedom of speech. But I started thinking about what Yoshida said, and it started to make a lot more sense the more I started thinking about it. What happened to the core ideals Nintendo once stood by? Nintendo, with their past generation consoles, offered a plethora of games across all the platforms they released at a decent price. I think the Wii U did it, actually the Wii and the Wii U, but I'm gonna start with the Wii. Did it the best. They had the best eShop, man, where they had the music. When you transform your data from the Wii to the Wii U, you'll see those little Pikmins carrying the games and going into the spaceship. I thought that was really awesome. They didn't really have to do all that with the visual effects, but they took it there. And Nintendo normally stands out above all companies that's out there. Sony, Xbox, PC, whatever. And no disrespect to those consoles, but Nintendo really had their own identity with everything they did, down to the eShop music and the ease of just playing your games, popping in the disc or popping the cartridge, whether it's the N64 or the old 8-bit, the old retro consoles, even up to the GameCube. You just pop the disc in, you play. I miss that Nintendo. Even with the DS, something as simple as a DS, the two screens, when they were very creative, where they had a little Face Raiders game that you can play. I mean, the games are pretty decently priced across the board on the eShop. The Wii, and let's talk about the Wii. Man, I used to love the eShop on the Wii. They had access to the retro games, even Sega Genesis games. And those weren't even Nintendo games, but we saw the dream, we saw the vision, and you had access to all these games, and you could purchase these games. Now, I do not like the service, the Nintendo Online that Nintendo is presenting with the Nintendo Switch 2. And even the Nintendo Switch 1 is getting a taste of what the Nintendo Online is for the Nintendo Switch 2. I don't like the Game Pass mindset that Nintendo's going with, because they have their service now, the Nintendo Online, which is pretty similar to Game Pass, but with less games, and you cannot purchase these games. It's almost like Nintendo, you know, they pretty much are selling a service. Like, what happened to, you know, okay, we have the GameCube section, we have the SNES section, the Game Boy section, and you know, you just go to those sections, the Nintendo section, see what they have with the old 8-bit NES, and you could purchase those games and you can keep them. I still have some of those retro games on my Wii on that little micro card, well, not a micro SD card, but you have the SD card for the Nintendo Wii. Those games are still there, man. So I missed that Nintendo, you know, if you're watching, you're listening, I know you're seeing these videos out here on YouTube of people expressing their concerns, and as you should, because you are losing your identity. Yes, people are still going to buy the Switch 2, and regardless, even myself, and that's not being hypocritical. I mean, I love Nintendo, I love their games. I've been waiting on the Switch 2 for quite some years now. But, you know, after the honeymoon phase, when you get the Switch 2 and you look at it and be like, okay, what's the difference between, you know, the Switch 2 and the PC handhelds? And those PC handhelds, you know, they do things a little bit better in comparison to the Switch. As far as, you know, future proofing. For example, with Steam, you know, you buy your games across Steam and you can play your Steam games across your Steam library across any PC handheld or any PC for that matter with ease. But Nintendo with the Switch 2, they want you to just have that one Switch 2 and you can only play on that Switch 2. The latest update that they released for the Nintendo Switch with the virtual game key cards, I do not like it. I have issues transferring my game, loaning it to my daughter. It will not work. It just, in practice, it's really difficult, man. The way how they word things and how you can transfer your games to a secondary Nintendo Switch or loan a game out is not explained properly. And when I follow the prompts, the messaging on screen, and how to transfer your game, how to loan your game out, it doesn't even work when you put both switches together. At least for me, I've seen videos where people work for them. I don't know how they do it, but it doesn't work for me. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person in that same boat. I miss, especially with the launch of the OG Switch back in 2017, where you can play your downloaded games on several Nintendo Switches, as many as Nintendo Switches as you own, with no issues. You didn't even really need online. Then the constant updates as the years went on is making it more, bringing it in line to how Microsoft especially is doing with their consoles. Man, I really don't like this whole DRM thing, and I get it, but at the same time, it's like Nintendo. I know you want that huge third-party support, but that doesn't mean you should sell your soul. That doesn't mean you should sell out and have this DRM in place, and you have these virtual game key cards that developers rather use because it's dirt cheap over the cartridges. It's like you're losing your identity. Part of the Nintendo Switch appeal was collecting and buying those Nintendo Switch cartridges. Honestly, I have several Nintendo Switches, and some friends have made fun of me and said, yo, why do you have so many consoles? Why do you have so many Switches? Easy, because I have all these consoles with several Nintendo Switches where I have all my games downloaded to the SD card on those Switches. Several games across all my Nintendo Switches. So when days like this happen where you need the internet to access the games that you already own, I don't have to go through that. I can just pick up any one of my old Nintendo Switches and just play with no issues, no problem. And we're trained to think that updates make a system better and games better. No, it does not. Updates actually ruin the experience for the most part. I would say 9 out of 10 times. There's always some fun exploit they want to get rid of, which I really don't like. But Nintendo really is losing that identity. Nintendo, what happened to, having all your games on cartridges, making the cartridges cheaper for developers to actually not be afraid to go with those cartridges? I mean, what happened to that, Nintendo? All I wanted with the Switch 2 really was, okay, you had the choice to either download your games from the eShop or have all games on cartridges where you can go to the store and just pick it up. And having those games on cartridges will save on system memory. And not to mention those faster SD cards they have, well, that's out now. That's hard to get a hold of. That's becoming an issue because people want these 512 to 1 terabyte, gigabyte SD express cards, but cannot get a hold of them. They're sold out. So somebody like me that likes to buy a lot of games, I'm quickly going to run out of space immediately with no space on my system memory to download a new game that I see that I'm interested in. So I can see that becoming a problem. And I know as time goes on, those SD cards, the 512 and the 1 terabyte, are going to be readily available with no problems. But right now, guys, we're not there yet. We're not there. Right now, they're hard to get a hold of. And who's to say a couple months down the line, even a year from now, they still may be hard to come across. We don't know what the future holds, guys. But right now, we're talking about the now. I think Nintendo should have never got rid of the virtual console. They should have kept the virtual console. Even with the OG Switch, when I saw the Nintendo Online, it's like they're going for a more service approach. I was like, why? I mean, you had something that worked. You had a virtual console on the Wii and the Wii U where you had games across all platforms. You can go in there, select whatever games you want, and download all your games. I think they should have kept that core experience going, because even Microsoft with the Game Pass, which I do give them credit for, every game on Game Pass you can buy. You don't really necessarily have to just play it from the cloud. You can actually purchase those games, and I don't understand why Nintendo doesn't allow you to purchase those games. Like, I would like to buy Soul Calibur. Some people may like to buy the Wind Waker game, and I believe games like that should already be on a cartridge, man. So Nintendo's pretty much becoming like these companies, and it's like giving people less incentive to even invest in Nintendo ecosystems. So right now, to me, what's saving Nintendo is just the name itself, Nintendo Switch, and its first-party games. But, they exhausted the entire library from the Wii U. The games that people never got a chance to play, those first-party games on the Wii U, Nintendo actually released them on the Nintendo Switch. For example, games like Xenoblade, stuff like that. I'm not going to get into all the first party games that were on the Wii that were ported over to the Nintendo Switch, but you guys get what I'm saying. So they have exhausted the whole first party Wii U library, and going into the Switch 2, they really don't have anything else to really offer us, because everything else we played on the Switch. Whatever we missed on the Wii U, especially the Wii U, is actually on the Nintendo Switch. So there you go. And it's sold 150 million. So 150 million people have access to all those games and probably already played some of those games, dipped their toe in it for a little bit, or even own a game. Understand what I'm saying? So what else does Nintendo have to offer with the Switch 2? And that's why you're seeing a whole bunch of third parties, jumping on Nintendo. Nintendo's pushing third party games on the Switch 2, which is cool, which is fine, because guess what? If I have a system where I can play all my games that's on every other console on one console, I'd rather that be my console. And I would love for the Nintendo Switch 2 to be my main console, because believe it or not, guys, the OG Switch, the Switch we have now, that has been my main console. I own every console. I like to play different games, but the Switch was mainly my main console, and I have more physical Switch games on my Switch versus my other consoles. Understand what I'm saying? So Nintendo's really losing their identity, man. I really think they need to go back to their core ideals, what made them stand out over the competition, before it's too late. Because after the honeymoon phase, that launch phase, who's to say people are going to say, man, I don't see, you know what? I might as well just go ahead and just get, a PC handheld. Let's go back to my console. So Nintendo's really in a tight spot, and they really have to tread lightly with what they're doing and the direction they're taking the Nintendo Switch 2 and their core business as a whole going into the future. Because Nintendo's actually really good at having one successful console, and going into the second console, they screw it all up, and then they have to find something that works. But I mean, how much more creative can you get nowadays with these games? And I've seen a lot of people complaining on YouTube saying that the Switch 2 is different from the Switch 1. I kind of disagree with that, because first of all, in my opinion at least, and the numbers will back up with what I'm about to tell you, Nintendo Switch, in my opinion, is the best console that ever came out in the past 8 years. I don't care how anybody feel about it, because the numbers actually proves that. The commercials, I mean, there's a lot of OGs playing these games. A lot of women actually took adaptation to the Nintendo Switch. Young, old, I mean, Nintendo had everybody cornered with a Nintendo Switch, so it just makes sense to go ahead and carry that torch onto the Switch 2. Okay, make a Switch 2. Let people know it's bigger and better. They're giving you what you want, because the Switch was already pure perfection. And that's why everybody in their mother's name is creating their own handheld. Even Sony's coming out with their own PS6 handheld, or whatever they want to call it. So that just goes to show you that Nintendo has a great idea and everybody wants in, but everybody may not be successful, as we saw with these PC handhelds. They have the ROG Ally, the Legion Go, Steam Deck, all that. Good systems, cool. I like it, man. But the Switch to me was still a better system. And it's not about the technical prowess, because some of the games didn't really look that much different anyway. You understand? The main issue I had with the Switch was the games run in 60 FPS. Unless you hack the system where you can put it in 60 FPS, then it's truly a way better system than even those PC handhelds. We don't really care about the graphics. It's more so about the experience, the games, and how you play those games. And Nintendo offered those things to me. The only thing that lacked was the frame rate here and there in some games. And that should be addressed mostly with a Nintendo Switch 2. But the core identity of what Nintendo used to be, man, offering you these old school retro games for cheap, having a virtual console like online system where you can purchase the game instead of like just renting them through a monthly subscription service or even a yearly subscription service, is just stupid to me. So, I mean, that's what I wanted to say, guys. I may have to reach out to Nintendo. Believe it or not, a lot of developers listened to me when I reached out to them, to be honest with you, even though, my channel is small. But, sometimes the smallest rock on top of the largest mountain, right, guys? But Nintendo needs to watch their step, man, because they're looking good right now. But after the launch phase, when everybody has a Switch after a year, I mean, look at the system like what now? Because also, even with the current Nintendo Switch, I know a lot of people for several years going back have said, oh, I don't play my Switch. They say, oh, what games are you playing on Nintendo Switch? Well, I just play Smash. Basically they play the first part of Nintendo titles with their friends like Mario Kart and Smash, and then they will move on. And they'll play a Steam Deck, or they just go back to their PC or whatever console they've been playing. But with a Nintendo Switch 2, I don't think they're going to have that issue, because whatever games, all the games you like are going to be on this thing. We all know that I heard Rainbow Six Siege is coming to the Switch 2, Call of Duty's coming to the Switch 2, Split Fiction. Pretty much, those are just a taste. Nintendo's showing you like, yo, listen, man, we can run all these games your favorite system has, and we're going to have those. So now you can play it on the go. So I think the Switch 2 was a great idea. I get it. Some people say Nintendo wasn't being creative, but I highly disagree with that, because the mouse feature, that's actually a new gimmick for the Nintendo Switch, and it works. Nobody complains about it. People have said it's as dead on accurate as the mouse on your PC, or at least close to it. I've heard mixed things, but regardless, I've heard so many good things about the mouse feature with the Nintendo Switch 2. And you have those magnetic controllers now where you just clap to the side of the system, and it's sturdy, and it works. It doesn't fall apart. You can play a game on the intense, gameplay. It doesn't slide off like, on the OG Switch. So I digress, man, that, that the Switch 2 isn't Nintendo being creative. They're very much being creative. They're building upon what they already have. Those are just haters, because there's a lot of haters out there. There's a lot of Steam Deck players out there that do not want this thing to be better than their system, their favorite system, or whatever platform that they like. But that's not how it works. If something is better, it's just better. There's a difference between you wanting something to be better and something that is better. So, hey, one thing about me, if it's good, I'll check it out. The Steam Deck. When I first saw the Steam Deck, I was like, wow, this might actually get me off my Nintendo Switch. And then when I finally saw, I gave it a chance. I went out, I ordered the system, got it. I played it. I'm like, okay, I see what they're trying to do. It's not ready yet. And then when, as the years went on, it got better with the compatibility. You can play more games, whereas at first, the Steam Deck had compatibility issues. Some games wouldn't work. Some games that did work, you couldn't use the buttons. You had to go into configuration. And that's just too much for my brain right now at my age. I just want to play video games. I don't want to figure out how to play a video game. I want to play a video game. And that's why I think consoles are still the best. You just pick up and play. And PC have gotten a lot better with that as well. They're more like consoles now. You have a controller, it's easy to sync up and play, which is cool. But a lot of times when I play this PC handhelds, I feel like I should be playing the Switch. The games just feel more at home to the Switch. You just download a game, or you pop the cartridge in and you play. You don't have to wait for the game to really load up and go through all that stuff for the computer to warm up. You just go. You just pop the game in and you go play. And that's what I like. Just plug and play. And the masses prefer it that way. So I get it. You have customization with a PC and these PC handhelds, but really and truly, majority of the people in the world, 9 out of 10 times, just want to just plug and play. And that's why consoles are more successful. Consoles are still bigger than PC. PC has came a long way, but console gaming is still way bigger than PC, than more people like to admit. And that's why the same games that are on PC, they sell way more on the console, because PC players only play certain games. But we're not going to get into all that. You guys know what it is, and I don't want to fly off the handle too much, but I do believe Nintendo is losing their identity, and they need to get back on track. So what Nintendo needs to do, they need to actually bring back the virtual console and allow us to purchase these games over multiple consoles like they did, and have introduced system menu music. And I think they need to pretty up the interface on the Nintendo Switch 2. It looks too much like the Switch 1. They did say they were going to bring backgrounds back, but we'll see. They need to be more creative like they was with the Nintendo DS, and they had 8 years to figure this out, because I expected the Switch 2 when it comes, right? You have chat out the box. You have messaging. group chat, which they do have, and the interface should totally look different. Just make it seem like it's a whole brand new system, because they kind of pulled the Xbox a little bit, even though they still did better than Xbox. Because if you look at Xbox from 2013 on all the consoles that released since then, all the way up to the now, with the series consoles, the dashboard has been the same. The advertisements is the same. The controller is the same. Like, you fire up your Xbox, you can't tell if it's an Xbox One X or if it's an Xbox Series X or it's a 2013 Xbox One. It all looks the same. So the Nintendo Switch 2 should have a whole different interface where you know it's the Nintendo Switch 2. And I've seen a lot of mock-ups on YouTube where people did a better job than actual Nintendo. I've seen actually a UI where it was more like the PlayStation, and that's one thing I do love about PlayStation. I admit that when you have the icon, the game icons, if you hover the cursor over the game icons, it'll show the game background. It shows up on the screen, and you hear the music from that game, or a certain type of music to represent that game. I think that was dope. Nintendo should have took that out of Sony's page. There's a lot of improvements Nintendo could have made, and what's kind of disappointing is they had 8 years to figure this out. So right now the UI to me is sloppy. The Nintendo Online is sloppy. Not bad, but sloppy. They need to get it together. And for Nintendo to have such a robust library, more than any console out there, the Nintendo Online should be filled to the brim with classic titles, just like the Virtual Console was on the Wii and the Wii U. So Nintendo is dropping the ball, man, and it just boggles my mind how they had 8 years to figure this out, man, and they just didn't get it right. And they do have plenty of time to add folders and to make improvements, like I've just stated, with the UI and the Virtual Console games where you can purchase. They have plenty of time to do that, even after the launch. But the question is, are they going to do it? So just to end the conversation, guys, and bring this video to a closing, is Nintendo really losing their identity? Yes, they are. The DRM situation, the virtual key cards, is just stupid. I mean, I love the animation where you bring the two Nintendo Switches together and you can trade a game. But, it doesn't even work all the time. And then there's the confusion of, they have to be in your family group. I mean, it's just confusion to me, guys. Like, Nintendo's really handling this really, really sloppy, man. They should have. And being that they're great partners with Microsoft, they should have allowed Microsoft to step in and kind of help them out with that. Or even Google, because Stadia, well, we're not going to talk about Stadia, man, but, the potential was there. So Nintendo, man, they're becoming lazy, they're becoming sloppy, selling old games at full price. When I think about it, man, that was really dirty of Nintendo. And not everybody has money. Fortunately, I had money to purchase those games, but not because I have the money or you may have the money doesn't mean it's right. And you should go out and purchase those full price old games with little to no improvements at all whatsoever. So Nintendo has gotten really dirty. They have gotten really sloppy. And that's just me, even as a fan, keeping it real, guys. I don't have any cut cards. I like to keep it real. I like to keep it 100, $1, and that's just what it is. So Nintendo, you need to do better with this Nintendo Online and figure this whole cartridge situation out. And speaking of cartridge, I think Nintendo should actually, guys, it's tough when I think about it, man. It's really crazy, man. But I really do think Nintendo should probably rebrand those cartridges, man. Matter of fact, rebrand the physical media. The cartridges are so expensive, and they're gonna stay expensive for a long time. I think Nintendo should just make like Sony had it right with the PSP, a mini disc. We're at an age where we can have a mini disc the same size as a GameCube and have 100 gigabytes on there. I think that'll be better off for Nintendo, and it'll be cheaper. But Nintendo like to tax people, because I believe they can make a mini disc, come out with a mini disc technology where it has an extravagant amount of gigabytes on it to hold any game for cheap. But no, Nintendo, they probably tax people, man. Nintendo has gotten greedy low key, man, especially with the Nintendo Switch, man. Because I remember the old Nintendo, they had the player's choice where the games was, I think, $20. I can't remember. And I get it. video games have gotten expensive, and you may say they can't go back to that, but yes, they can, because even right now, you go to GameStop. GameStop right now has a sale, selling games for $15. Not just bad games, but like really good games that I like. But I'm kind of done buying games for like the current consoles, really. So I glossed over a lot of sales. I passed on a lot of sales because I really don't. I'm good, man. Honestly, I'm just cleaning up with a Nintendo Switch. There's still a whole bunch of physical games that I want for my Nintendo Switch. Still, there's a lot of games, and I'd love to see how those games look and run. Are they going to look and run any better if I pop the cartridge into my Nintendo Switch 2? And if it does, oh man. So pretty much the Switch 2 is going to be the system that the OG Switch should have been in the first place. Just more RAM and being able to play these games at great frame rates. But anyway, guys, this video has gone on for long enough. Let me know in the comment section how you feel about Nintendo losing their identity, or do you think I'm tripping? I mean, let's come talk to me in that comment section, man, because I don't really see a lot of people talking about this as much. Maybe like one or two videos, and it got some traction. People watched it, but it's something that I always wanted to talk about, and really just started realizing, or more so just taking more serious, man, because it's really getting out of hand. And if we don't vote with our wallets, man, they're going to keep on doing this, because I kind of really don't see the difference between what Nintendo was doing versus Microsoft, honestly, and Sony. Really, I don't, man. Like, they just need to go back to that non-DRM nonsense, man, because that's what made Nintendo Switch win, man. It was a place to buy your favorite physical games with no compromise, man. You just play the game and that's it. My library is right here. I can play any one of these games anytime I want. But it seems like Nintendo doesn't even want you to do that anymore, man. They really are losing their identity, and it's really sad. And that's why I told y'all in my last video that the Switch 2 may just be my very last system, man. Really and truly. I mean, I always support Nintendo, but going forward, especially what's going on with my life and my business and, getting that on track, I kind of really don't have time to really keep up as much. You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes we just got to move on from things. Every now and then I might get it in with the games. I'm more so buying more games than I really plan, to be honest with you. There are a few games that I've purchased that I played. My backlog is crazy. It's like I'm just adding to it, which is cool. At the same time, it's not cool. I try to get to them all. Honestly, I do. But, it's 24 hours in a day. So there you have it, guys. So I'll just be more careful going forward to Switch 2 and the games I purchased. And it would seem like, honestly, what's so funny, guys? I don't mind double dipping and buying the same games that I've been playing on my PS5 and, Series console or whatever on a Nintendo Switch, rebuying them if they were on cartridges. If they were on cartridges, I would actually rebuy those games and play it and enjoy it more so on a Nintendo platform. But with this digital game key card nonsense and the lack of cartridges, I don't really think so. So I'm going to be more selective with, the games I purchased on Switch 2. And I think I'm going to more so be playing my old Switch titles on the Nintendo Switch 2 versus buying some of the newer games. And I was somebody sent me a comment saying, "Yo, who buys a new system to play older games?" Evidently, a lot of people. That's why Microsoft went out of their way to make as many as their old games from their old platforms backwards compatible with better frame rate and higher graphics, and they have done an excellent job on that. So Nintendo's actually doing the same thing, because you look at it, we all complained about the frame rate. People talked about the graphics, but the graphics it never really bothered me with the Switch as much, man. It's just the frame rate, man. Because you gotta understand, a lot of us, man, especially old heads, we came from like the Game Boy. So we already had it in our mind that we know the Game Boy is not going to offer you the same experience as a console. Even though they had the same games, they were different on the handheld. It was a different experience. It was a totally different game. But for some reason, they were still actually great, and sometimes better because of the direction where they took it. So that's what I used to love about those old handhelds like the Game Boy and the GBA, because restriction is what really make you think outside of the box more than anything, because people complain about space even back then, and now we have these consoles with these big hard drives and these discs that hold 100 gigabytes, and they put these large open world games on there, but the games don't seem large, if that makes any sense. I played so many open world games that are empty. There's nothing in them. They're just big for no reason. And Nintendo even said this back in the days, and a friend of mine brought it to my attention. He said that Nintendo said that a large sandbox game or open world game is just a cheaper way of making a game look bigger than it really is. So it seems big at first, but when you play it, it's not even really big. Take a game like Final Fantasy. I forgot what. I think it was Final Fantasy 14. I could be wrong. The one with Noctis and all that. Like, that game was big for no reason. Like, there was nothing in that open world. Nothing. The best open world game I've actually played was Zelda, and that's why Zelda Breath of the Wild still get praised to this day. And a lot of developers, even from Sony camp, Ghost of Tsushima, creators of Elden Ring, admit that they took a page out of Zelda. Everybody did, but they still could never get it right. And Zelda Breath of the Wild, what I loved about it, nothing was ever the same. No matter where you go on the map, there's always something to find. A piece of armor, a weapon, or a Korok seed, whatever. And the view was always beautiful. Like, there's no direction you can take in Breath of the Wild where there was nothing worth your while. Nintendo rewarded you for going out of your way. But I've played so many open world games, even going far back as the Xbox One, up until the series consoles on PS5, where the game seems like it's huge, but there's nothing in it. There's nothing worthwhile. You go out of your way, there's nothing worthwhile. Elden Ring, that's a very overrated game. I don't think that game is all that. Yeah, so because it was on every platform. So that kind of makes sense. Nintendo with Zelda Breath of the Wild sold 31 plus million copies on that one console alone. They didn't have to put on multiple consoles. If Breath of the Wild was on every console, that game probably would have sold 100 million. If it could sell 30 plus million on just Nintendo Switch alone. You get what I'm saying? But I kind of do commend Elden Ring, because when you go out of your way, you find those little catacombs and you may find a weapon in there or a boss. So that was actually kind of cool. So I get them that, you know what I'm saying? But that's as far as the respect goes. And that's about it, guys. Sorry for ranting along. It is what it is, man. That's just how I do on my channel. You get what I'm saying? That's why I have my own channel. But let me know in the comment section, man, how you feel about Nintendo losing that identity or anything that I've said in this video, man. Peace out. Love y'all. You already know what to do. If you're new to my channel, like and subscribe, man, so I can keep on bringing you content, reviews, gameplay, news, thoughts, opinions, whatever. That's what I'm here for. That's what I do, to talk about the real when it comes to electronics and especially video games, man. Peace out.